welcome to a new video, and today I am going to be wrapping up and talking about the books that I read in July. And trust me, it was probably the best reading month that I had, not in terms of like the amount of books that I read perhaps, even though I did read 12 books, but in terms of the quality and the range. Oh my god, I am just so excited to talk to you about these books. Before we begin, I again have to say I'm sorry, I could not find Stats bitch. I could not find her in her regular home as well. So the search is on, and we will find her, but meanwhile I will do the stats myself. As usual, do look at the timestamps down below, and head on to the things that you think are interesting if you don't think that stats interest you, but I love stats. So anyway, I read 12 books, as I said. The total number of pages that I read was 3080 pages, which is not bad. I read 6 genres, out of which 3 are contemporary, 3 are fantasy, 2 sci-fi. Very strange for me to be reading so many fantasy and sci-fi books, but they were light on the fantasy and sci-fi. Anyway, 2 mystery thrillers, 1 graphic novel, and 1 memoir. And then I read from 8 countries, which is amazing because in my previous month I read from 4 countries, which I was very upset about. So I'm very glad that I am diversifying and reading from more countries. So even though 3 were from the US and 3 from the UK, there was 1 from Canada, 1 from Japan, 1 from Barbados, 1 from Nigeria, 1 from Ghana, and 1 from India. So very excited about the breadth of these countries as well. In terms of the gender of authors as well, I think I did great here as well. 67% were female, that I read 8 female authors. There were 2 male authors, 1 non-binary author, and 1 intersex author. So yay! Then I also think I did a great job in terms of like the queer authors that I read, because my ratio of reading queer to straight authors wasn't as great before, and also in terms of queer themes, I think I did a pretty good job, as you can see in this chart as well. Now, coming to the ratings, I had 3 5 stars. I know, 3 5 stars this month, which I think like total in the year that has gone by, I've had maybe like 4 5 stars or 3 5 stars in total in the previous other month. So 3 5 stars coming from this month itself. Amazing. I've had 3 4.5 stars, which is like near perfection. 3 4 stars, 2 3.5 stars, and 1 DNF. So as you can see, it's mainly been like pretty great. So I'm going to talk about books that were the worst, though nothing really was the worst. Everything was amazing, to the best, in my eyes. So I'll start off with Winter's Orbit, which is a book that I DNF'd. Now, this book is not objectively bad. I just feel like it wasn't for me at this point of time. Even as I DNF'd it as like I will visit it again. Also, it was through a library service, and like the 3 weeks of it was over. So like it just went away, so I had no choice as well. So there was that. But yeah, this book is basically about these 2 princes, or like this one prince of this world, like this fantastical world, and this like, yeah, literally like an Earth-ish planet, and he has to get into an arranged marriage with this other person, and this person has just lost their partner, and that person may have been murdered. So there's like this whole like thing as to figuring out what happened, and also about their love story. But I felt like it was very slow moving. I have been told that this was written as like fan fiction-y sort of things, or like written on like a Waterpad thingy. So like I think that it was done in chapters, so that's how people like consumed it. But like I felt it was very, very slow for me in the beginning, and I wasn't really like into it, though I was very into the world building, because I thought that that was really interesting in terms of the characters. Like there was a lot of gender fluidity, and like the emperor was a woman, and it just felt like really, really cool, this world. But I didn't get into it fast enough, so I DNF'd it. But I definitely hope to read it again soon, and everyone else who has read it has really liked it. But I also have to realize that young adult and fantasy books, like high fantasy books, may not be my thing. So yeah, I just have to keep that in mind. The next book that I want to talk about is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. Now, I read a book by C.J. Tudor this year, which is called The Chalk Man, that I absolutely loved. So I was very excited to read her latest release, which is The Burning Girls. And this book was fine. I thought that it was, again, very fast-paced, and like the environment and atmosphere was rich, and you were kind of like wondering what is happening. So let me tell you what this book is about. Essentially, a reverend moves to a new town with her daughter, and we are following two perspectives, which is of the daughter as well as the reverend, but we are also following another perspective of something that has happened in the past. So in this small town in the UK somewhere, 3,000 years ago, there were these people who were martyred because of their faith. And then 30 years ago, there were two girls that went missing. So there's that mystery. So we're following the two girls from 30 years ago. But we're also following these two other people, which are the reverend and her daughter, and it's basically about how they have weird incidents that are happening, and like everything seems a little fishy, and just some weird stuff starts happening. So it's not horror, but it is like what's going on and like all of that sort of stuff. So I liked it. I thought that it was a nice like read, but I wouldn't like wholeheartedly recommend it. It was just like sort of good. So that's why I gave it a 3.5. But yeah. The next book is Tokyo Ueno Station by Miri, translated by Morgan Giles, I think. Yes, I'm correct. So this is a weirdish sort of book, and it's a short Japanese novella translated from Japanese to English, and essentially we are following this ghost, this man who used to be a homeless man who lived around Tokyo Ueno Station, which is one of like these stations in Tokyo, but it also has like this park, etc. around it. So we basically get to know about his life, both as a homeless person and what sort of caused that homelessness, but also like of his past and who he was and what he did and all of that sort of stuff. This was really, really interesting. It was a little weird, and there were times where I was just like, where is this going? And that was the sort of weird. It wasn't like, like I don't know if you get what I mean. Like it wasn't Japanese weird, if that makes sense to you, but it was just like, where is this going? But there were certain parts of this book that really hit home with me. For example, the way that grief was covered in this book, and it really hit home for me, and just I really, really enjoyed that, which is a weird thing to say, but I really like agreed with what was being said, if that makes sense. And yeah, so there was that, and just I really enjoyed this book in parts, and I would still recommend it, but yeah, that was basically it. The next book that I would like to talk to you about is The Weight of the Stars by Ancrum. Now, this book I went in with slightly high expectations because everyone said nothing but good things about it. It was highly recommended by Kayla for Books and Lala. And yeah, let's talk about it. So essentially, it's about this small town in the US where there is this girl called Ryan. She's in high school and she is an orphan of sorts. Yeah, she's an orphan. Her parents have died and she has her brother, and he has stopped talking and they have a kid. Like, he has a kid. So it's like they live in a trailer park and stuff like that. So it's an interesting life that they live already. Ryan is sort of like the troubled child. She creates a lot of trouble in school, but she still is interested and is good at studies, but like, of course, she has to take care of like literally the family and stuff like that, so obviously she's falling behind. But she has like a really amazing set of friends. So I really loved that dynamic itself. Like, I just really loved the friends and this found family that they had. But enter Alex or Alexandria, who is this new person who comes into school, and she is essentially the daughter of this one astronaut who went off into space. Like, is one of those people who were just set off into space to see like if they could create like, what's it called, life on another planet or something like that. Like, they were just like set off into space and she was the daughter of one of them, and it was this whole thing. And essentially Ryan has always been super interested in this world because her mother was in NASA. So it's just like this whole thing. And they sort of have like not the best start to a friendship, but then they become friends and maybe there's more. So there's like queerness involved, which is great, and there's just like a lot more that sort of happens. I thought that this book was really sweet. It was really nice in terms of the friendships, as I have been saying throughout. But apart from that, the plot itself didn't really do too much for me until the end. I felt like the latter half of the book, when things finally were coming together, then I think I was finally getting sold on things and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think I enjoyed this book a lot more like towards the end, but also in the beginning, I don't know. I gave it a 4-star. I liked it, but I don't know. The next book is a dark academia thriller. I know, about a female serial killer. I know, just like the premise itself just like sold me. So we are told of this book from two perspectives. The first perspective is of this lecturer, this professor in this elite university, who is a serial killer. Essentially what she does is that every year she chooses one person, like one man, who she thinks has gotten away with the most amount of bullshit. So for example, like assault or anything that has happened, but that person has not been punished for it, and then she kills that person. So every year she chooses one and she's like, you have to go. So yeah, so we follow her, but essentially what happens is in this time, people are investigating it a little further and they may have like starting to put things together. So there's that stuff going on. And then the next perspective is of a student who has just come into the university. She's sort of shy, she has shitty parents and all of that sort of stuff, but she starts becoming friends with her roommate in her dorm, and this roommate gets assaulted and she wants to take revenge. So like the person whose name is Kali wants to take revenge on behalf of her dorm mate, and it is lovely. So it is queer, it is female serial killer, it is thriller, it is just really good. Though there were parts of it that felt a little predictable, which was fine, though I still really enjoyed that this was happening and that this was a thing. So if you're into this, then definitely read it as well. I enjoyed the characters. There were certain things as well which I was just like, where is this going? But again, I was like ready to forgive and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I really enjoyed, and now that I look at it, I feel like I kind of want to give it a 4.5 stars. Earlier I'd given it 4 stars, but now I just have like so much joy and like happiness when I think of it that maybe 4.5 stars. But the book itself is called Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and this is set in Ghana, but it has this slight sci-fi twist to it. Essentially, we are following this very young girl who's like 11 or 13 years old. I'm not too sure, I don't remember. But she is dubbed the Angel of Death because essentially something has happened to her in which she can emit this green light, which kills people. Essentially, she has like this weird superpower sort of thing, where she can do these things, and she just travels. Whatever technology she touches stops working, so she just has to walk. So she's walking towards something, and we get to know her story, of where she came from, of like all the things that she's sort of going through, and there's sort of a plot that also like is there. And this is a novella, and it is just so lovely. I absolutely love Sankofa as a character, as a child. She's just so sweet and adorable, but just full of heart, and the sort of stuff that she's gone through, I feel like I just want to hug her, you know what I mean? But I just really enjoyed the story as well. It was very fast paced, and just very well written. So yeah, I would definitely recommend 100%. And I look forward to more stories and more books by Nnedi Okorafor, because wow. The next book is a 68-paged book. So like, I don't know what I can say about it really, but it is Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok, Vaid, Menon, and they are just, oh my god, so brilliant. Essentially, Alok, Vaid, Menon themselves are a non-binary person who is an artist and a spoken word person, and just amazing. And they have written this book which talks about the gender binary and the non-binary and just like all of that sort of stuff. And the beginning part is sort of like a memoir where they talk about their life and just being non-binary and growing into it. And then the second part, which I thought was really interesting and just super well done, was basically about questions that people might have. So like, biology, what is up with that, and like all of that sort of stuff. So all the things that you may have like thought of, or like things that you may have like slight doubts about, or if these are things that you as an ally get questioned about, and you don't quite know how to answer that, all of that is like written in their words, and it's just so well done and so amazing, and just so like thought-provoking and informative. So I really would highly recommend this book. This is available on audiobook as well as like Kindle, so those are the two versions that I listened to as well as read. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself as well as was informed. So yeah, I really liked it and would highly recommend. The next book is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Now, I loved this book. This was just such a warm hug. I swear, it was so sweet. This book was heavily spoken about last year, especially when it came out, because people absolutely loved it, and rightfully so. This book was specially championed by this one booktuber called Adri. You have to check them out. If you have not checked them out, then what are you doing in life? They recommend so many queer books, and this book in particular was very close to them because it is a queer Latinx trans book, and oh my god, it's so good. Essentially, we are following this one boy called Yadriel, who's a trans boy, and he is a brujo. Now, brujos, from what I understood through the book, are essentially people who have like these magical abilities. So the men have the ability to kind of like tether like or untether people from this world in terms of like their souls, etc., who are like ghosts essentially. And then the women have like healing capabilities and stuff like that. So essentially what Yadriel wants to do is to prove that he is a brujo, and he can do all of these things that men from his community can also do. So in the process of trying to prove himself, but also there were other things that happened, like for example his cousin was found dead, though his body isn't found, but they know that he's dead because of magical reasons. I can't really explain it. But essentially he tries to summon his cousin's spirit, but instead of his cousin he summons this other guy called Julian, and he is like sort of this bad boy of his school, and he and what follows is just the nicest, cutest thing. Just all the characters are absolutely amazing. Julian is just this, oh my god, he is just such a sweet, messy boy. He's so cute but so nice, and Yadriel is so lovely as well. And Yadriel has this cousin of his called Maritza who follows him around, and she's just such like this spunky character. I just loved all the characters in this. There was a grandma, there was the father, there were just so many people who I was just like, I love you. So yeah, I absolutely loved this book. It was just the nicest thing that I read that month in terms of just like the warm hugs and vibes. I don't know if I can explain that to you, but yeah, it was just really good. I loved all the characters as I have told you, and it was just lovely. I'm gonna stop now. It was just a great book. I gave it a 4.5 star. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is Transcendent Kingdom by Gyasi, and this is my effort to read all the shortlisted books on the Women's Prize. So I read 2 this month. I will talk to you about them. But however, this one I really enjoyed, though I know that a lot of people have not, and I think one of the reasons why a lot of people have not is because they read Homegoing, which was the first book by Gyasi, and then they felt like it kind of fell short in that perspective or something. But I loved this book. Essentially, this is a weird thing to explain, but we follow this girl called Gifty, who is a scientist who is studying, wait, let me tell you. She's a PhD student studying reward-seeking behavior and neurocircuits of addiction and depression. Now, a lot of these things I don't understand, but depression I do sort of understand. Unfortunately. Anyway, but anyway, we are following her life, and we get to see her life currently where she is this PhD student, but also her life previously where she, her parents were these immigrants who moved from, I think, Ghana to be in the US, and they moved to the south somewhere, and they are very highly religious. So the mother is very highly religious and she goes to church every day, and Gifty is also brought up in this very highly religious sort of background, but you see her now being in this very highly scientific world, and it's basically about how these two parts of her are sort of struggling to like live and be. So it's like, how do these two parts of her sort of become that one person? Because like, how can you be scientific but also believe in God and everything that comes with it? I feel like maybe in the science community that is something that people like don't really know how to put these two together. So I thought that was really well done. But also what was really well done was the talk of depression and of addiction. So Gifty lost her brother when she was young, because of addiction, and we talk about him and who he was and how that sort of came to be. But we also see how the mother then went through a lot of depression because of that back then, but also now, and just how you kind of deal with it in the current day as a caretaker, as a person who was 11 years old and then a person who's 28 years old, I think, and try to also like take care of this person who's clearly going through a lot. And yeah, it was just really, really well done. I listened to this on audiobook as well as read it. So I really enjoyed the prose. I thought that it was very simply written. There were a lot of things that I highlighted and then put up on Instagram as my stories. So like, you can follow me for all of that stuff. But yeah, I just thought that it was very like thought-provoking, and I liked the characters and what they had to say. So I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if many others have, but I think go in with like lesser expectations, and I think you will like it as well. But anyway, I gave this a 4.5 stars. Moving on to my 5-star reads. Okay, this one, the first one I want to talk to you about was a book that I read with my mother. We read it together. It was so cute and so amazing, and we read it in one sitting because it is sort of like a graphic novel sort of thing. Like it's all like pictures and little words written, and that is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I don't know, you'll see, it's here. But it is just so cute. It's basically about this young boy named Charlie, who is going about someplace and he finds like a fox, and then they meet a mole and then a horse, and they basically talk to each other about life and friendship and cake and a lot of other things, and it's so sweet and cute, and it's just really, really nice. It reminded me a lot of like The Little Prince, and I feel like it is good not only for children, which is, it is a children's book, but I feel like adults would really like enjoy this as well. It is a book which I feel like you can read in like totality, but I also feel like it's a sort of book that you could like randomly flip open to a page and also like get a lot from it. So I feel like that's something that I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do it after I film this video, but yeah, it's so sweet, and I really, really enjoyed my time reading it, and it was just so cute. I would definitely recommend 1000%. It is a little pricey, so like just keep it in your cart or something and just look for like discounts, or like get it secondhand or whatever. But definitely read it. It's so nice. The next book that I gave 5 stars to is this book called How the One-Armed Woman Sweeps Her House. Yes, I kept saying sweeps her floor for the longest time, but How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House is the book, and it is by Cheri Jones, who is from Barbados, and this book was so good. It is shortlisted for the Women's Prize, and that's the reason why I read it, but I went in with like almost no real expectations per se, but this book was just a masterclass as to how to weave in societal stuff as well as like a plot, like a solid thrilling plot as to like what is going on and characters, and just it was everything. Essentially, we are following multiple perspectives. The first is of Lala, who is a young girl who is pregnant and gives birth in the first chapter itself, and we follow her perspective. She has a husband who is sort of not such a great dude. His name is Aiden, and things happen in the first chapter which then connect them to this other woman whose name is Mira. Her name is Mira Whelan, and she's also from Barbados, but she has married a white Britisher, and she herself was also white, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so essentially, or mixed. Yeah. Anyway, So we get to see her perspective as well, of her coming back to this world, and we also get to see how her past was, and also of her marriage and like her present and all of that sort of stuff. And we also get to see Lala's perspective of who she came from, her mother, her grandmother. So we get to see all of these like generations of people, but it's just done so well. It doesn't feel like disjointed. I just loved all of these different perspectives. We also get to hear this perspective of this other guy called Tone, and I just loved all of these different perspectives. There's also perspective of like this police guy. It's just so good. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. Essentially, what it's trying to tell you is of Barbados, and this world that may seem very like glamoury and like lovely beaches and stuff like that, but like the people who live there themselves just have to deal with so much, because it's like poverty and the amount of crime and all of that sort of stuff. So definite trigger warnings for everything to do with gun violence and also domestic violence and just like all of that sort of stuff. So definitely keep that in mind. If those are things that trigger you, definitely check out the trigger warnings. But I just felt like this book was just so well written, and so amazing. I just loved it a lot. I really loved it, and I don't think the characters are going to leave me at any point of time. I was just really invested in their lives, and I wanted to know what was happening. I did feel like the end was just a little bit like it just happened too fast. Like I wanted a little like more. So that was my only like didn't quite like that, but I still felt like this book deserves a 5-star because it is a debut book, and just the way that it was written, masterclass, amazing. So yeah, definitely recommend, though do check out the trigger warnings. Okay, but my favorite book of this month has to be Hench by Natalie, Zina, Walschots. This book, I feel like it was written for me. Like it was made for me. So if you too are like a Marvel fan, or like generally a superhero, supervillain, I don't know, that sort of fan, then this book needs to be read. Like, anyway, this book is set in a world where superheroes and supervillains exist, and essentially in order to make these superheroes and supervillains do what they do, it can't just be them. They also have people helping them. So like they do have people like that fight for them and stuff like that as well, but also they have people in the background who do things like data entry and data analysis. And one of them is this person called Anna, who is the main person of this book, and essentially she's like a temp. She's like trying to find jobs, and she starts working with villains because it just pays better. And like she says, like it's like working for a Fortune 500 company, because you know that they do evil shit as well, so you might as well work for like a super villain as well, you know what I mean? Anyway, so one of the jobs that she has, she is put in front of the camera, so where this villain is doing these villainy sort of things, and she just kind of has to be there in the background sort of stuff. And and what happens at this point of time is that these superheroes come and sort of save the day, but in that process also cause a lot of harm. And one of the things that happens is that she is grievously injured. So she has to basically sit at home and do nothing, and because of that she doesn't earn money, and she's just really fed up of all of this sort of stuff that is happening to her. And in this process, what she does is that she starts looking at all of the data pertaining to all the harm that superheroes actually cause. So like, as if you see these movies, right, like you see that while saving the day, they also cause a lot of harm to people, but also to like cities and like property and all of that sort of stuff. So for example, like a person may have saved their entire life for this one home, which is then destroyed promptly. So like what happens then, which are things we don't really like address in these movies, but like in real life, if that did happen, that would be an issue, right? But yeah, so that's basically what happens. And she starts putting together all of this information of all the harm that these guys actually do, and like starts putting it online, and it starts getting a lot of traction. And one of the people who then starts looking at this stuff is the biggest and baddest supervillain, and he sort of hires her, and then it's just all of the sort of stuff that happens post that. It is just such an amazing book in terms of the people. I loved the character arcs. Like, you can see how they are so morally gray, but just amazing. The banter was stunning. You get to see how these characters become the people who they are. You get to see why the big bad is the big bad, or why he may not be the big bad, or like why the hero may not be the best, and how it might just be like PR and like this whole organization in the back who's like making things the way that it is. And it's just so interesting. I loved this book so much. It is just absolutely stunning. It is also super queer, but not in like a in your face sort of way. Like, there was like a gay general who, and there's like non-binary people, and it's just great. Like, it was just a part of who they were. It wasn't like the main focus, but like it was just so casually there, which I really appreciated. And I loved this book. It was just everything for me. The end, I do have to say, has like solid body horror. Like, the gore was just like, I like, do not eat while that shit is happening. Oh my god, the end was just a lot. So definitely keep that in mind. But everything that happened was stunning, was amazing, was absolutely just breathtakingly good. I loved the writing, I loved the characters, as I have said so many times. I loved their arcs, I loved their banter, I just loved everything that this book did. And I just need more in my life. So yeah, this book is just, I loved it. It was a book written for me. So yeah, that is the end of the wrap up of July. I do hope that you enjoyed. Do let me know down in the comments which book you hope to pick up. If you have read any of these books, let me know down in the comments. And also let me know what your favorite read of July was. But that is all for now. I hope that you are having a great August, and I will catch you in my next video. Okay, bye.